You can't see the bottom, you have waves, you have a little bit more chaos and unpredictability, and your mechanics completely fly out the window. But let's break it down. What's going on, swim fans? This is the first open water swim of the season, and I'm gonna show you 5 pro swim tips. Before you go out in the open water, let's go. Before we get into the water, it is so important to have the right equipment. So as you notice right now, I'm putting on my open water wetsuit. Now, even if you're swimming without a wetsuit, it's really important that you have some swim trunks or a suit that you are very comfortable with. Now, right now you see I'm putting on a full body suit. If the water is a little bit chilly, you're gonna wanna have a wetsuit on. There's a lot of different options when it comes to wetsuits. They have different thicknesses, different styles, but at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable. So make sure you check out a wetsuit that fits you. There's a few different benefits of wearing a wetsuit. It is polyurethane, it's rubber. It's actually going to make you float, so you'll have more buoyancy in the water, which means you're gonna ride higher, better body position. You're gonna swim faster. So sometimes people wear the wetsuit, not for the buoyancy, but just for the fact that it's so cold in the water, and you wanna make sure you're keeping your internals nice and warm, retain that warmth, focus on swimming rather than trying to keep your body from getting too cold. I have the open water safety buoy. Now this is really valuable because it'll make you visible out in the open water. It's also really good as a safety precaution. You can also put a few different things in there. So you wanna put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, keep you hydrated, keep you fueled on the way out there. A few different things we need to keep in mind, including our swim cap and goggles. You wanna have goggles that are comfortable, that you're used to using in the pool, and then you wanna have a swim cap that makes you visible. So actually the worst color cap to wear is white. Some of the best colors are actually red or yellow, something that really pops out and stands out in the open water. Of course, you gotta make sure you put on the sunscreen before you go out, and if you wanna keep some hydration for your swim, that's also a good idea. The second pro tip is to make sure you survey the scene before you go out into the open water. So if you look out here behind me, we have a beautiful lake. You wanna do your research before you go out in the water. So that means looking at Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever it is, to really understand how far you're gonna swim, where you're gonna swim, what are the current conditions, whether it's the tide, the temperature of the water, if there's a marina, if there's boats, kayakers. You wanna have a really good understanding of all these different things before you go out in the water. It's also really important to understand where the different buoys are. So if you look behind me here, there's a lane line that goes out about 100 meters. And if you also look out, you're gonna see a lot of flat water. Now that's really good, but you also wanna understand the depth of the water because you wanna know if you'll be able to stand. Ideally, we're gonna be swimming, so you're not gonna stand, but you wanna understand if there's any seaweed or other things that could really obstruct your open water swim. One of the things that I love about swimming in the open water is the fact that you're in nature. It's so beautiful to be one with the water in the natural surroundings of Earth. I've had the opportunity to swim in some of the most beautiful locations in the world, and I've shared some of those experiences here on the channel. Today, I want to tell you about an epic adventure swim coming up, hosted by UltraSwim 33.3, today's video sponsor. They're hosting an epic race coming up in Montenegro, September 29 to October 2nd. If you ever wanted to swim the English Channel, but swimming 33.3 kilometers in one shot isn't your cup of tea, then UltraSwim 33.3 races are made just for you. You'll swim in a new location each day, doing a total distance of 33.3 kilometers, point to point over 4 days. Think rally racing, not NASCAR or F1, so you won't be swimming endless laps. You can race solo, do a relay with a buddy, or compete on a team of up to 4 swimmers. But it's more than just a swim race, it's a one-of-a-kind experience that allows you to push your limits and challenge yourself with like-minded swimmers from around the world who crave adventure. So if you're looking for something to train for this summer, this is it. Head over to the link below to register for Montenegro, use the code US333MSP, and you'll get 2 33.3 euro vouchers to spend on official gear to get you ready for the race. Thanks again to UltraSwim 33.3 for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. We've surveyed the scene, now it's time to go for an open water swim. The last thing we have to make sure we do is to track it. I'm gonna load up the MySwimPro app on my Apple Watch. We're gonna go into open water mode to make sure we track everything that we do. Let's go. The third pro tip is safety. Anytime you're doing an open water swim, you don't want to swim alone. The worst thing that you can do is go into an open water scenario, you're all by yourself, something happens, God forbid, and you don't have a safety buoy, and then you're stranded out in the water. So in order to avoid that, we want to think ahead, and we want to make sure that you have the right safety precautions in place. Now, the first step is having the safety buoy. You can have your hydration with you, you can have a snack, that's great. You want to also make sure you're swimming with a buddy. So if you're swimming in groups of 2, 3, 4, 5, know exactly where everyone's at, check in with each other, and hold yourselves accountable. If you don't have a swim buddy, that's fine. You can swim with a kayaker. Someone will follow you along. They can also get great pictures of you while you're swimming, which is awesome. And if you don't have that, make sure you swim in a lifeguarded area. So if you see behind me, you might be able to see there's some lane lines, and it's a lifeguarded area, so there's always someone watching you. Don't depend on that. You want to make sure you have your own swim buddy and your own safety precautions, but you want to make sure that you're in a safe environment, because when you're practicing safety, you're going to have a good time. Another reason why it's so important to have a swim buddy or a kayaker is so that you're more visible to other people out in the water. So if you have a boat or ships, or there's a yacht club or whatever, they're gonna be able to see you a lot easier, because instead of seeing one floating buoy, they're gonna see a bunch of floating buoys. It's colorful, it's gonna stand out. So stay safe out there, folks. The fourth pro tip is technique. Now, when it comes to open water swimming, your technique is actually not too much different than what you do in the pool. Now, I know there's a lot of other variables in there. You can't see the bottom. There's a lot of chaos maybe out in the water, the temperature, but let's break it down. Now, breathing is actually not gonna be that much different in the sense of when you're swimming the freestyle stroke, you're gonna rotate onto your side, and you wanna focus on keeping one eye and one ear in the water. Now, this might be a little bit more difficult in the open water because you have waves, you have a little bit more chaos and unpredictability, but the concept is the same. The big difference when it comes to breathing is sighting. So you're gonna wanna actually lift your head up and breathe looking directly in front of you. And this concept of sighting or spotting is really important, and it's something you can actually practice in the pool. So don't think that you have to swim in open water in order to practice breathing in the open water. So if you're swimming in a pool, all you have to do is lift your head up, spot somewhere on the pool deck, and then place your head back down. I normally like to spot every 4, 6, or 8 strokes. So most of my strokes, I'm gonna be breathing on my side. I breathe every 2 strokes. And then every 4, 6, or 8, or even 12, if there's not a lot of current, I'm gonna lift my head up and make sure I'm swimming in a straight line. Now, the second pro tip for open water technique is to make sure you have an early vertical forearm. You wanna make sure you're entering the water with your fingertips. You wanna have a little bit larger of a reach out in front compared to swimming in the pool, where you're gonna have a little bit higher elbow out of the water. Your arm's a little bit straighter in the open water. You wanna avoid the chop. And once your fingertips enter the water, you drive those fingertips to the bottom of the ocean, bottom of the lake, and you're gonna get that early vertical forearm. That applies in both the pool as well as open water. And then finally, you wanna maximize your distance per stroke in open water. I see too many swimmers just spin their arms. They're not rotating. They're really shortening their stroke when it comes to open water, and your mechanics completely fly out the window. Good technique in the pool will apply in the open water, with a few of those little exceptions when it comes to breathing or in distance per stroke, where you wanna have a slightly straighter arm recovery in the open water. But once your hand is underwater, the mechanics are all the same. You wanna have an early vertical forearm, drive your fingertips to the bottom of the lake or ocean. That's the way you're gonna grab the most water, and that's how you're gonna swim the fastest with the least amount of energy. Now, pro tip number 5 is to make sure you're tracking all your swims. Some of the major benefits is to not only know how far you swam, but also to keep an eye on your pace. You wanna know what was your average pace per 100 meters. Then you can compare that over time. Now, what you don't wanna do is compare that to what you do in the pool, because swimming in a pool is different than open water. There's also a lot of other variables in open water that you don't have in the pool: the currents, the temperature, how wavy it was. You can also look at a few other metrics in the MySwimPro app, including your SWALF score, which is a combination of your distance per stroke as well as your speed. So factor in all of these variables when you're trying to evaluate how you did in your open water swim. One of my favorite things to do in the MySwimPro app is to actually see a map of my open water swim, and this is really fun to take a screenshot, share it to social media, and especially sharing inside of the MySwimPro Facebook group. This is the largest digital swimming community in the world of open water swimmers, pool swimmers, triathletes, master swimmers, fitness swimmers. I hope to see you guys in there. It'll be linked down below. Wish you the best and happy swimming.